Hi, good morning. This is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Ki Business Baatein. This is a channel that brings to you weekly policy analysis, conversations, or short stories. But right now at 8:15 in the morning, on weekdays, Monday to Friday, we bring to you news behind the news. This is a channel that looks at some headlines which we think are important and analyzes them in greater detail. And today I have my co-anchor Anurag with me. Welcome, Anurag. And the three titles that we shall discuss today are given in a screen. The first is about Trump announcing a ceasefire between Iran and Israel. Okay, very interesting and very important. The second one is contrary to beliefs that PMI was declining and private sector was not interested. Private sector PMI has started inching upwards. Interesting news again. And the third one is India suddenly says that it is not in a rush to have even the first draft of the trade agreement with the USA. Let's take the first story. The first story is very important globally as well as for India. All of a sudden, Trump announced that effective today, there'll be a total ceasefire between Israel and Iran, and that both countries had become signatories to the ceasefire. Very interesting news indeed. Although Iran, at 4:15 a.m. Tehran time, said, we have not received any information about Israel, but if Israel fires, we'll fire back. There was no word from Israel. And what is interesting is, this came on the heels of a 19 missile strike that Iran made against US installations in Qatar. Interestingly, the missiles were not the latest missiles, they were a generation earlier. 18 of the 19 were shot down. One hit, but not a single casualty. And Trump goes on television immediately after that saying, well, Iran has had its retaliation. There are no casualties. It was a small retaliation. I think enough is enough. Let's call a ceasefire. No, we do not want to retaliate against Iran anymore. All of a sudden, all fiery words that were spoken on all sides seem to be silenced. If that is not all, you must remember that when USA attacked Iran and said that all the nuclear facilities were destroyed, as yesterday we pointed out, two of the nuclear sites did not have any centrifuges at all. They were the older generation that was scrapped. The third one was partially destroyed, and all the enriched uranium had already been shifted to places elsewhere. Effectively, US made a mild strike. Iran retaliated a mild strike. And yesterday, again, at the UN Security Council meeting, which called for immediate such ceasefire, USA also agreed to that ceasefire. One of the first times it has agreed to a UN ceasefire deal between Iran and Israel. It would appear, therefore, that Israel was receiving such a battering from Iran. No news comes out of Israel as yet, that Israel must have requested USA to put a stop to the war. And this entire sequence of events was orchestrated leading to a ceasefire so that there'll be no more damage. Israel can't survive even 1 week more. Its Iron Dome is depleted entirely, and the damage that Israel has suffered, nobody knows how to quantify it because Israel does not let the information come out. But according to informed sources, Israel has suffered enormously. Yes, Israel has bombed Iran, but Iran is a large country. Israel is a tiny country. So when Israel is hit and its key infrastructure is hit, and discrete military installations are hit, the damage is phenomenal. There's no word as yet about Gaza. Let us see what happens. Let's see what happens after today when the ceasefire is called. Thank you very much for listening. And now let me go to the second story, which is by my co-anchor Anurag. Anurag, good to have you.
Good morning. India's private sector activity hit a 14-month high in June, with the HSBC Flash Composite PMI rising to 61, up from 59.3 in May. This marks the fastest expansion since April 2024, driven by unprecedented export orders and robust domestic demand. Manufacturing has led this surge, while services growth reached a 10-month high peak. This behind this boost, MSMEs are the unsung engine, contributing 30% to the GDP and 45% to exports. This sector, with around 64 million registered businesses, employs over 110 million Indians. In June, MSMEs fueled a record high hiring and output through efficiency gains and tech investments. Moreover, credit exposure to MSMEs surged 13% year on year to 35 lakh crores, reflecting their pivotal role in regional development and supply chain resilience. Mm, Further, the analysis shows that MSMEs capitalized on rising global demand, especially in sectors like textiles, engineering goods, and IT services. Yet, the geopolitical tensions, shifting trade policies, and input cost volatility threatens the financial year of 26, projected at 6.3 to 6.8% of growth. While private investment remains a buffer, can MSMEs sustain this momentum amid the global headwinds and evolving regulatory frameworks? What's your take on this, sir?
Excellent piece of information and something that should cheer up India. Private PMI, when it goes up, it indicates that private activity has increased. Either to all investments in India were headed by public sector investments. Private sector remained shy. That is a good sign. But will it be enough? At present, the indications are that it's growing. A lot will depend upon bank finance, but more will depend on how global markets work, as you rightly point out. If imports are going to become more expensive because of Trump, they could suffer. If exports become difficult because of Trump's tariffs, that will also create difficulties. The best thing for India is to look for new markets, which unfortunately India's commerce minister does not want to push. He wants to go back to the same old markets, which themselves do not have enough money left. So obviously, for this growth to be sustained, you have to make sure that your trade policies change, your outlook changes, and you start looking at new markets afresh. Will India do so? Is where the crux lies. And Anurag, great story. Let's see what the government does yet. Thanks. Let's take the third story. Again, in a very interesting reversal of events, India suddenly declared that it would not rush to finalize the first draft of a trade deal with America. Please remember that the entire Commerce Ministry, not the entire, but large numbers of the Commerce Ministry were camped in USA for week after week, trying to hammer out a trade agreement. That didn't work. And the first indications from the American side was that they wanted India to import its arms which had failed in the theaters, in the Middle East theaters and in the Ukrainian theaters of war. And finally, when America did say, yes, we are interested, we would like you to buy arms and we'd like to buy our agricultural products. In other words, America was more interested in protecting its farmers at the cost of Indian farmers. And that is a political subject with India. there could be a last factor too. Remember at the G7 meeting, Trump invited Modi to come to the US, to the White House, and discuss the trade deals. Normally, Modi would have rushed at any invitation. This time, the Prime Minister said he had work in Odisha, and instead went to Odisha. He declined Trump's invitation. Why? Maybe because of the cold reception he received in the last meeting. Maybe he knew that his arms had been twisted. Maybe he doesn't want to confront Trump directly right now. It's best to work through intermediaries rather than go directly. Effectively, ties between USA and India could be turning a little cooler, and India wants to show that it's not desperate. Which could be a good indication in a way. It means India is ready to look at other countries and other trade opportunities and other alliances. One hopes so, because that could be where India's future development lies. Anyway, thank you very much. It's good to have you all here, and that finishes the news broadcast. And now let me go to the questions that are there. The first question is, how serious is the ceasefire announcement? Good question. Whenever Trump says anything, you should always think of something else also happening. Trump wanted a ceasefire with Iran, and while negotiations were on, he went and bombed it. He had the discussions with Iran, and then Israel went and attacked. Effectively, when you have so many attacks taking place all the time, you have a situation where Trump's words are not always reliable. There's a second problem. Some informed observers on YouTube said only 6 missiles are fired. Iran says 19 were fired, and Trump says 15 were fired. There's some discrepancy. But unlike Ukraine, which could have been settled very quickly, Trump has offered to settle Israel and Iran. Someone is bleeding, and someone wants a resolution to this war, and that person, the party that's bleeding, could be Israel. So maybe Trump wants a ceasefire, Israel wants a ceasefire, and Iran also is willing to have a peace. So well, all the indications are auspicious, and let's see what happens. There's a second question. Will there be retaliation on uncertainty? Yes, there will be retaliation uncertainty. And the second question is on PMI. Are we looking in good times? Achhe din? I don't know. The first sign is good. For better days, India needs to reorient itself. Have more economic policy and not ideological policies. Look at new markets and look at many more relationships. If Iran can arrive at a peace settlement with both the US and Israel, surely India can do better. Anyway, let's go to the last question. I will try to answer that. And the question is just about India's India not pursuing US trade deal very aggressively. It makes sense, isn't it? It makes sense because USA wants to export agricultural products. That's political dynamite for India. It's best to let things get postponed till there's some clarity on how this could be resolved. Effectively, postponement is a better solution than going headlong into a relationship that's going to damage India. Well, that brings me to the end of today's session. Thank you for being with us. And yes, there's a reminder, please click the subscribe button. Please click the like button. And most important, tell all your friends about us. We need our audiences to grow. Thank you for being with us. Have a wonderful day ahead. See you again tomorrow, same time, same place. Take care. Good luck.